I still remember the exact moment when my sister burst into laughter. We were sitting in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by cardboard boxes filled with handmade candles, and I had just told her about my business plan. The sound of her laughter echoed off the walls, mixing with the scent of lavender and vanilla that permeated the air. I was 23 years old, freshly laid off from my corporate marketing job, and pouring every cent of my savings into what she called a hobby that got out of hand. Emma, seriously? Sarah wiped tears from her eyes, still chuckling. You're gonna sell candles? In 2018? Everyone and their grandmother makes candles now. It's oversaturated. You should be looking for a real job, not playing entrepreneur with wax and wicks. Her words stung more than I wanted to admit. Sarah was older by 5 years, married to a successful attorney, living in a pristine house in the suburbs with 2 perfect children. She had followed the traditional path. Everything her parents had envisioned for both of us. Bachelor's degree, stable job, marriage, kids. The American dream, neatly packaged and tied with a bow. Meanwhile, I was the family disappointment, the one who couldn't seem to hold down a job, who changed her mind too often, who dreamed too big according to everyone around me. But something inside me refused to let her laughter extinguish the fire that had been building for months. I had been making candles since college, initially as a way to de-stress during finals week. What started as a creative outlet had evolved into something more when friends began requesting custom orders, then friends of friends, then strangers on Instagram. The demand was there, quietly humming beneath the surface, and I was the only one who seemed to hear it. "Just watch," I said quietly, meeting her eyes. "This is going to work." She shook her head, her expression softening into something that looked uncomfortably close to pity. "I'm just worried about you, Em. You don't have a backup plan. What happens when this doesn't pan out? You're already behind on building your career. Every month you spend on this is a month you're not gaining real experience." I didn't argue further. There was no point. Sarah saw the world in spreadsheets and 5-year plans. She couldn't understand that sometimes success requires a leap into the unknown, that calculated risks are still risks, and that the path less traveled exists for a reason. So I smiled, thanked her for her concern, and went back to labeling my candles after she left. Those first 6 months were brutal. I worked 18-hour days, pouring candles in my apartment kitchen, nearly burning myself more times than I could count. My social life evaporated, dating became a distant memory. I lived on instant ramen and black coffee, funneling every dollar back into inventory and a bare-bones website I'd built using YouTube tutorials. My apartment permanently smelled like a Bath & Body Works exploded, which my landlord complained about monthly. The breakthrough came unexpectedly, as these things often do. A lifestyle blogger with 500,000 followers stumbled across my Instagram page and fell in love with my rainy day reading collection. She featured my candles in a cozy autumn aesthetic post, and overnight, my small operation was overwhelmed with orders. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. My website crashed twice. I was simultaneously terrified and exhilarated. I hired my first employee, my college roommate, Jessica, who had recently lost her own job and was desperate enough to take a chance on my chaotic startup. We worked side by side in my apartment, which had transformed into a full-scale production facility. Wax shipments arrived daily, essential oils lined every available surface. We developed a system, crude but effective, and somehow managed to fulfill every order, even if it meant pulling several all-nighters in a row. By the end of year 1, I had generated $200,000 in revenue. It wasn't profit, not by a long shot, but it was proof of concept. It was validation that I wasn't crazy, that I had identified something real in the market. I wanted to call Sarah to tell her that maybe, just maybe, I knew what I was doing, but pride kept me silent. I needed more than one good year. I needed undeniable success. Year 2 brought expansion. I moved operations out of my apartment and into a small warehouse space. I hired 3 more employees. I invested in professional branding, working with a designer to create packaging that looked like it belonged in boutique stores. I attended trade shows, networked relentlessly, and pitched my products to retail buyers who initially dismissed me as too small, too new, too risky. But I was learning. Every rejection taught me something. Every successful sale showed me what customers truly wanted. So I leaned into that. I crafted scents that told stories. First Snow smelled like pine and peppermint, designed to evoke childhood wonder. Sunday Morning blended coffee and vanilla, capturing that lazy weekend feeling. Ocean Therapy combined sea salt and jasmine, bottling the sensation of beach vacation tranquility. The storytelling aspect resonated. Customers began sharing photos of my candles on social media, talking about the memories they triggered, the moods they created. I built a community without entirely realizing it. A group of people who saw my brand as more than just home fragrance. We were selling emotional experiences in glass jars, and that made all the difference. By year 4, I had a problem I never anticipated. I couldn't keep up with demand. We were producing thousands of candles monthly, and it still wasn't enough. Retailers who had previously rejected me were now calling, wanting to stock my products. I was approached by a major home goods chain about a potential partnership. The numbers were staggering, far beyond anything I imagined when I started in my apartment bedroom. I hired a business manager, someone with actual MBA credentials who could handle the operational complexity I was drowning in. Marcus was a godsend, bringing structure to my creative chaos. He implemented systems, negotiated better supplier contracts, and managed the financial projections that made my head spin. With his help, we scaled intelligently, avoiding the pitfalls that sink so many rapidly growing startups. During this time, I saw Sarah occasionally at family gatherings. She never asked about the business directly, though I suspect our mother kept her updated. There was an awkwardness between us now, a gap that hadn't existed before. Part of me wanted her to acknowledge what I was building, to admit she had been wrong, but she remained silent on the subject, and I refused to bring it up first. Then came year 4, the year when everything crystallized. We launched in 300 retail locations nationwide. Our online sales tripled. I was featured in Forbes' 30 Under 30 list. Major celebrities were photographed with my candles in the background of their Instagram posts, providing publicity I could never have afforded. The brand had achieved something magical. It had become aspirational while remaining accessible. I moved into a real office building. The team had grown to 35 people. We hired a PR firm. I was doing interviews, speaking at conferences about entrepreneurship, being held up as an example of millennial business success. It was surreal. Just 4 years earlier, I had been mixing wax in a studio apartment, and now I was running a multi-million-dollar company. The financial reality hit me during a quarterly review meeting with Marcus and my accountant. They walked me through the numbers, the profit margins, the business valuation. Marcus looked at me seriously and said, "Emma, you understand what this means, right? Your personal net worth is just over $2 million. You're a millionaire." I was 28 years old. I sat there, stunned, staring at the spreadsheet that somehow quantified all those sleepless nights, burned fingers, and moments of crushing self-doubt. $2 million. It felt abstract, impossible. I hadn't started the business to get rich. I had started it because I loved creating something beautiful, because I saw an opportunity, because I refused to let other people's limitations define my possibilities. That evening, I drove to Sarah's house. It was November, nearly 5 years to the day since she had laughed in my childhood bedroom. I parked in her perfect driveway, walked up to her perfect front door, and rang the bell. When she answered, surprise flickered across her face. "Emma? Is everything okay?" "Can we talk?" I asked. We sat in her living room, the same one where we'd had countless family gatherings. Her children were upstairs doing homework. Her husband was working late, as usual. The house was immaculate, catalog perfect, exactly like I remembered. "I wanted to tell you something," I began, choosing my words carefully. "Do you remember when you laughed at my business idea?" Sarah's expression shifted, discomfort replacing surprise. "Emma, Let me finish," I said gently. "You laughed because you thought I was making a mistake, because it seemed risky and foolish and impractical. And I get it. From the outside, it probably looked like I was throwing my life away on a pipe dream. She nodded slowly, not meeting my eyes. But here's the thing, I continued. Last quarter, my company generated $3 million in revenue. I have 35 employees. We're in 300 stores across the country. And as of last month, my personal net worth crossed $2 million. I'm 28, Sarah. I'm a millionaire before 30. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah stared at me, her mouth slightly open, processing information that clearly contradicted every assumption she'd held for the past 5 years. 2 million? She finally whispered. 2 million, I confirmed. She sat back, her hand covering her mouth. I watched emotions play across her face. Shock, disbelief, something that might have been regret. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. I had no idea. I thought, Mom said you were doing okay, but I never imagined. She trailed off, then looked at me directly. Emma, I'm so sorry for laughing, for not believing in you, for making you feel like your dream was worthless. The apology I had imagined demanding for years suddenly didn't matter as much as I expected. Sitting there, seeing my sister's genuine remorse, I realized that her disbelief had never really been about me. It had been about her own fears, her own inability to take risks, her own regrets about the paths not taken. I didn't come here to make you feel bad, I said honestly. I came because I wanted you to understand something. Success doesn't always look traditional. It doesn't always follow the path we're told to take. Sometimes it means taking a leap that terrifies everyone around you, including yourself. Sarah wiped her eyes, and I saw my older sister in a new light. She wasn't the confident, together person I had always envied. She was someone who had played it safe, who had chosen security over passion, and who was, perhaps, questioning those choices now. Are you happy? She asked quietly. Really happy. I thought about it honestly before answering. Yes, exhausted, constantly stressed, never quite sure if I'm making the right decisions, but yes, genuinely happy. I wake up excited about what I'm building. That's worth more than I can explain. We talked for hours that night. Really talked, in a way we hadn't since we were kids. She told me about her own abandoned dreams, a photography career she'd given up for stability, creative impulses she'd suppressed for practicality. I told her about the loneliness of those early days, the moments I had doubted everything, the times I had almost given up. By the time I left, something had shifted between us. The gap had closed. We weren't the same people we'd been 5 years ago, either of us, but we could finally see each other clearly. Driving home that night, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The laughed-at girl in the bedroom full of cardboard boxes had become the CEO of a thriving company. But more importantly, she had become someone who trusted her own vision, who refused to let other people's limitations define her possibilities, who understood that success is built on thousands of small decisions to keep going when quitting would be easier. The candle business continued to grow. We expanded internationally. We launched a home fragrance line. We developed partnerships with interior designers and hotels. By the time I turned 30, the company's valuation had reached 8 figures, and I had achieved a level of financial success that teenage Emma could never have imagined. But the number that mattered most wasn't in my bank account. It was in the lives my business had touched. The employees who'd found career growth they never expected, the customers who told me my candles helped them through difficult times, the young entrepreneurs who reached out to say my story inspired them to take their own leaps. And, yes, my sister, who eventually started her photography business at 40, finally pursuing the dreams she'd set aside decades earlier. She sent me a text the day she got her first paying client. Thank you for showing me it's never too late to start. I keep a single candle in my office, one from that very first batch I made in my apartment. It's misshapen, the label slightly crooked, the scent not quite balanced. It's imperfect in every way, and I've never lit it. It sits on my desk as a reminder of where I started, of the moment I chose to bet on myself, of the day my sister laughed and I decided her disbelief wouldn't determine my destiny. Sometimes people ask me what it feels like to be a millionaire before 30. The truth is, it feels like validation, like proof that intuition and hard work can overcome skepticism. But it also feels like responsibility. Like I owe something to that scared 23-year-old who mixed wax in her kitchen and dared to dream bigger than her circumstances. The money is nice, certainly. It provides security and options I never had before. But the real wealth is in proving that you can create your own path, that traditional success isn't the only kind that matters, that sometimes the people who laugh loudest are simply afraid to take the same risks. My sister doesn't laugh anymore when I talk about business ideas. Now she listens, asks questions, sometimes even offers advice. We've become partners in our own way. Two women who took different paths to understanding that success is personal, that it looks different for everyone, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is trust yourself when everyone else doubts you. I'm 32 now, and the business continues to evolve. We're exploring sustainable packaging, partnering with environmental causes, using our platform to make a positive impact beyond just selling products. The journey that started with mockery has led to meaning, and that's worth more than any bank account balance. But I'd be lying if I said there isn't a small part of me that still remembers that laughter, that still feels the sting of being dismissed and doubted. I've learned to use it as fuel, as motivation, as a reminder that other people's opinions are just that, opinions. They don't have to become your reality. To anyone reading this who has an idea that people laugh at, a dream that seems impractical, a vision that others can't see, trust yourself. Do the work. Take the calculated risks. Ignore the doubt, especially when it comes from people who've never taken the leap themselves. Your version of success might not look like anyone else's, and that's exactly as it should be. And to my sister, who gave me the gift of doubt that I transformed into determination, thank you. Your laughter became my fuel, and look how far we've both come.